it's such a blessing to be here. And you know, after everything that comes before, the music, the meditation, the readings, everything, it's just such a blessing that I really feel like that this is an anticlimax, but I'm not going to act that way. Anyway, my topic today is love is letting go of fear. And when I found out that our theme for the month of February, which is sort of a month of love, that our theme was going to be love, I immediately thought of a book that I have had for well over 30 years. I don't know how long, and it's called Love is Letting Go of Fear. You know, many times the title of a book will tell us about everything we need to know about the book. And then at the same time, we've just got to read it. And this is one of those books. It is by Dr. Gerald Jampolsky, who is a practicing psychiatrist. Now he's in his 90s, and I think he's still going. He also is a great student of A Course in Miracles, and he is a founder of the Center for Attitudinal Healing, which I'll be talking more about as we go along here. As I said, I read this the first time over 30 years ago, before I ever heard of science of mind, before I ever heard of religious science. And I've read it a few other times, and I picked it off the shelf and read it again, and I realized that what he is saying is what we teach here. And it's just so beautiful. Now, I had never heard of A Course in Miracles before I read this book, and he really uses it so much, and it's so close to what we teach here. It's just such a blessing. Now, he reminds us that there are only two emotions, love and fear. They show up in various ways. However, they cannot show up at the same time. Love is a natural inheritance that we have. Fear is manufactured by our own minds. And love, as the Bible tells us, that perfect love casteth out fear. Now, we know that God is love. We've been told that God is love. But I like to turn it around sometime and say love is God. We're more familiar. I don't know about you. I'm more familiar with love than I was of God. I'm moving in that direction. But when I say love is God, I have a greater idea of where I'm coming from on this. My mentor, Thomas Croward, says that love is the prime moving power of the creative spirit. And our founder, Ernest Holmes, defines love as the self-givingness of spirit through the desire of life to express itself in terms of creation. Love is free from condemnation, even as it is free from fear. Love is a cosmic force whose sweep is irresistible. And then there's fear. Now, I learned in Sunday school or somewhere along the line that fear is an acronym for false evidence appearing real. Now, I don't know about you, but I tell you, it appears very, very real to me. And I think I probably established a habit of having fear in my life at a very early time in my life. Because even though I don't remember things that I've been fearful of in many cases because I have let go of it, but there are some that I still remember. And interestingly, the ones that I remember most are ones when I was afraid of something that was going to keep me from experiencing something that I really wanted to experience very deeply. And the most recent example of that I can think of was 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I was taking my comprehensive exams to become a licensed minister. And I tell you, I was just almost paralyzed with fear. And it's so interesting because I have had so many loving experiences, more than I can even talk about, since I became a minister. But at that time, it was a little scary. And I have to tell you that when I think back on it now, I can still remember just a little bit of what that felt like. Now, I know that my fears that I've had in almost every case, probably in every case, were self-inflicted. I realize that that's not true for everybody on the planet, because I know that they're faced with fear that is much greater than I've had. Now, Holmes defines fear as the antithesis of faith. It may be conscious or subjective, but if it is to be eliminated, it must be on both conscious and subjective levels. Now, fear distorts our perception and confuses us. Love, on the other hand, is everything that is of value. Fear offers us nothing because it is nothing. But many of us have old tapes of fear that we keep playing over and over again. And we allow fear to cloud the present moment so much that it keeps us from projecting love and good into the future. It keeps us from enjoying the present moment. Now, most of us know that forgiveness is the greatest tool that we can have to let go of fear. We are free to live in the reality of the present moment. We are free to let go of that guilt and that worry and all that other stuff that keeps us from living in the present and that keeps us from projecting a wonderful future for ourselves. Now, Dr. Jampolsky says, and of course I agree with him or I wouldn't be standing here saying it, that peace of mind as our single goal is the most potent, motivating force that we can have. Think about that now. Peace of mind as our single goal is the most potent, motivating force that we can have. Now, he speaks of a singleness of goal, and we know what we mean by that, I think. You know, if not, just think about if you're in a life-threatening situation, then the thing that you want to do is to keep breathing. That's number one. That is your only goal at that time. And so sometimes if we are not experiencing that peace of mind, we might remember the importance of that singleness of our goal. And as I said, forgiveness is our greatest tool for staying on this purpose. Now, others do not have to change, and that's good, that others don't have to change in order for us to experience that, and that's good because we cannot change what other people are doing. But we can choose how we will see others. We can choose to see other people as expending or giving out love, or as asking for love. And as we let go of fear, we can stop judging. That's very difficult to stop judging. I think we probably know that, but we can do it. We can stop judging and projecting the past into the future. Now, Dr. George Bendel, who was a good friend and associate of our founder, Ernest Holmes, tells about something that happened to him in one of his essays. He relates this, that he was a minister of a church in New York City. And so he was driving to church one day, and he had forgotten that his brakes weren't too good, and so he just went through an intersection. Well, this caused a big truck to have to brake and change course in a hurry. And so when he finally stopped the car, I mean, this guy, he said it was the biggest guy he'd ever seen in his life, got out of the truck and came over and started telling him that he wasn't very good, that he shouldn't be allowed to have a driver's license, that he was too stupid for anything, and Dr. Bendel said he went on for about 5 minutes saying things that he didn't want to repeat. But finally, he paused for breath, and at that point, Dr. Bendel said to him, "I love you too." At that point, he said that the truck driver mumbled a little bit, went back and got into his truck and drove off. But Dr. Bendel has said that I learned from that there is a power in love. And now what we experience in our lives is usually a reflection of where we are in our lives. If we are experiencing fear, then we project that fear into our environment. If we're experiencing well-being and love and peace, then that's what's projected into our environment. This reminded me of when I was in the Navy, and you know, when you're on a ship, it's a very small community, which sometimes is very, very isolated. And the sailors love to talk about the previous ships that they have been on. And I found, and this is pretty well known, I think, that the people who bad-mouthed their previous ship and talked about all the things that were bad about the previous ship, it wasn't going to be long until they were going to experience the same thing on their new ship. But other people who loved their previous ship and enjoyed being there and enjoyed being in a positive environment would tend to create that same environment and really just move the level of acceptance and love on the new ship as well. Now, we know here that we are individualizations of the one divine Spirit. This is something that I really teach a lot in all of my classes, and I know that many of you have been in my classes, and it's wonderful that we are individualizations of this divine power. This means that we are living in that oneness, that we communicate our love, the love that we are, with each other. And I know that this love is healing. This love is a healing power. Now, when we speak of love, I think back about what Walter Starkey said in It's All God, the book that we frequently had a class on, or that we recently had a class on. And he says that love is going beyond loving. Going not love, not the opposite of fear, not the opposite of evil, but it is reaching a point where we are love, where each one of us is the presence of love. This is very empowering. When we realize that we are the presence of love, then we respond automatically from being love. We don't have to stop and think, well, how am I going to respond? You know, it's just an automatic response from being love. And as we know that we also are experiencing this divine perfection that love is. I've lost my place here. Okay. Now, realizing the power of love, Dr. Jampolsky started working with a few children who were diagnosed as terminally ill. And this was in Tiburon, California. And his success led to the establishment of the Center for Attitudinal Healing. Now, the Center for Attitudinal Healing, I just Googled it last week and looked at it. There are centers all over the United States, and in so many different parts of the world that I didn't even try and list them all. Now, attitudinal healing defines health as inner peace. It states that love is the most important healing force in the world. That's something that I hope we can always remember, that love is the most important healing force in the world. And they define healing as letting go of fear. Now, the Centers for Attitudinal Healing use a peer support model. They use patients, they use former patients, they use trained specialists, and they all are supporting and sharing love with each other. And this especially includes children. Now, it's not a religious organization. It's open to everyone. And in any and all situations, we can choose between peace and conflict, and between love and fear. And that's part of their mission statement, part of their guiding principles. Now, the most common fear that many people have is a fear of death. And particularly for people who have been diagnosed as terminally ill, this is something that's very big. Now, healing does not always mean a return to physical well-being. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it means moving on to the next level. Now, as we learn and as they teach that love is eternal, without beginning, without end. Life is eternal, without beginning, without end. And death is not the end. Death is a transition, which is something that we certainly teach here in our center. But all of us, wherever we are, whatever we're doing, can choose peace instead of conflict. We can choose love instead of fear.